Redding is alongside. Dale Wolfley is getting a breather right now because Shane Lyons is going to do some heavy lifting with us, West Virginia Athletic Director. Shane, here we are, 2017. Hard to imagine. I know you break things down in a number of different ways, by fiscal year, by scholastic year. Sometimes you look at it in quarters here, but 2017, in a vacuum, generically speaking, is off to a terrific start.
We really have had a terrific start to the whole academic year. Obviously, football, what they did last fall with the 10 wins, plus finishing in the top 20, for the final rankings. Our women's soccer being national runners-up. We currently have both men's and women's basketball nationally ranked. Men, had a great win last night. Rifle team's ranked number 2 in the country. So gymnastics is ranked in the top 25. So we're really having a great year so far, not only athletically, we talk about academics as well. Last fall we had overall roughly with 500 student athletes, 12 of our 17 teams had a team GPA average over a 3.0 overall. Our team GPAs was 3.11, so I'm very proud of that. And our coaches and student athletes are not only doing it on the field, they're doing it in the classroom as well.
Shane, what I'd like to talk to you about is, let's get your take on the legislation that's at play right now in college football, talking about moving back this day, the National Signing Day. I've heard a lot of dates in the past bandied about. I think at one point it was discussed August 1st by some conferences, had favor for that. Maybe the SEC favored the Monday after Thanksgiving. First, let's talk about the reason for moving it, but second, talk about the impact, because I know, a lot of coaches want to avoid babysitting 20 kids who are committed for the last couple months to follow the season, but it might also force some decisions by some marquee players as well. Talk about the ramifications of what's playing out there.
Well, and again, I think it goes back to your first point is a lot of babysitting's going on, and this has been bandied around for years. In my previous life, I was on the compliance and governance side, and this has been talked about for years, probably over 10 years, if not longer. But ultimately, what's on the books right now is the potential to have an early signing period. I think where we've landed is a small window that we currently have in December already with the junior college players. We haven't defined if it's going to be 48 hours, 72 hours, but at least get those young men who have committed off the books, let them sign so your coaches can then focus on the 7, 8, 5, whatever the number may be, and still have this signing period, but this isn't going to be the big and only signing period for football. One time it was talked about moving it all the way back to June. You mentioned August, you mentioned, after Thanksgiving. There's pros and cons to all these things, Jed, but I think we ended up, I was supportive, the Big 12 was supportive of that December period, as opposed to moving it back, because now we're going to start recruiting kids younger and younger, and then interfere with their senior seasons in high school. So it looks like in April that we'll vote on legislation to have it in December. In addition to that, there's another piece of that proposal that adds a 10th coach. Right now we have the head coach and 9 assistants, and what they're talking about is adding an additional coach. If you look at the breakdown sport by sport, football does have, not probably, it does have player to coach ratio the highest of any of our sports that we have. So by adding that 10th coach, that ratio will drop, and I think it's needed. So we'll work through that this April and see where we come out.
Shane Lyons, West Virginia Athletic Director, he needs no introduction, is joining us here on National Signing Day. You have an opportunity to watch Dana Holgerson and his assistants go to work, do their thing, and guys like Juwan Sider and so many other assistant coaches, how they passionately, and I'm not doing it justice when I just say passionately, go after athletes and really do it in the right way. And I think that kind of separates West Virginia, and not to say that other schools don't do that, but the job that they've done over the last handful of years obviously has paid dividends. And looking at this year's class, my goodness, a lot of kudos their way.
It is. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hours on the road. It's a lot of time away from their families. You know what? A lot of fans don't understand. We start the football season in August. Obviously, they're with their current student athletes. There's some recruiting that's going on during the fall, but the bulk of it is out on the road in December and January. And the amount of hours places that they fly, point A to point B to point C in one day, going to the home of these prospective student athletes, selling West Virginia. I think we have a lot to sell here. We got a great tradition, great history in our football program, and to be able to, talk to these student athletes, the parents, and talk about coming to West Virginia, put the blue and gold uniform on, represent this great university, this great athletic department, and continue the tradition and history we have as something that's special. And these coaches have done a heck of a job.
Well, Shane, the reason I always like getting a chance to talk to you is because you get a perspective, big picture on the national scope. And to that end, I'd also like to talk about the college football playoff. A couple years behind us now, the ramifications or impact that it's had on scheduling.
Right.
I know that West Virginia, for a long time, has had plans to add some of the blue bloods to our schedule moving forward. We've had a lot of success in doing that. Season opener against Virginia Tech next year isn't by accident.
Right.
And in years after that, a lot other teams, previous matchups of high marquee matchups, we're trying to steer in that direction. But it seems that a number of other teams across the college landscape are trying to resume build as well, and maybe that's what I'm about to ask you. Is it in large measure because of that profile or trying to build because of the playoff?
Yeah, I think you have to follow suit, and there was discussions about the strength of schedule, and now with the new college football playoff model, I think it's being looked at, it's being talked about by the media about what is the strength of schedule. There's a balance there, Jed, that you have to look at. But I think if you look at our schedule starting next year all the way through 2025, pretty much have Power Fives. We have 9 conference games. 9 conference games plus 2 additional Power Fives within our schedule. And, that's a tough schedule. But at the same time, I didn't ever want us to be in a situation where we had a successful year and they looked at our schedule and said, well, you played an FCS school and you also didn't play really 2 very good Power Fives, or you played an FBS school and an FCS and only 1. So I think we've set it up as an institution so that can never be in doubt. The thing hard about scheduling is that, as I just said, we're in 2025. We've got the Penn States, the Marylands, the Virginia Techs back on the schedule, which I wanted from a regional standpoint. But, that could be a tough schedule along with all that we have in the Big 12 Conference in, the coming years.
I think looking back on things with the benefit of hindsight, the tough scheduling that you did this year, when you reevaluate it, as you guys are constantly doing, you probably said, yeah, thumbs up. This is the way that we need to be, just from for all the reasons that you mentioned per Jed's question. But from a football, X's and O's, sharpening the knife standpoint, I think Dana was rather pleased with how his team was feeling and where they were at as far as caliber of play going into that conference league.
Right. No, absolutely. And then again, I think from a student-athlete standpoint, they want to see that schedule. They want to see the big names on that schedule and have something to play for. Like you said, we're opening up with Virginia Tech, and to look at that next year for our student athletes, and as hard as they work during the summertime and off-season conditioning, to say that game means something, that first kickoff. In future years, and Jed, you kind of touched on it, we've looked at the neutral site game with Virginia Tech. The following year, we go to Charlotte. It was just announced a couple of weeks ago, that in 2020 we're going to go back to Atlanta in Florida State. So that gives us something to look forward to, and the student athletes to look forward to. But again, it's a tough schedule. I've always been under the belief if you want to be the best, you got to play the best, and that's what we're trying to do.
And you always hear so much said about the arms race of college football and college sports today at large. And one of the things that a prospective student athlete wants to see when he shows up on a campus, and this has always been very obvious, it matters, football matters to the school that he is visiting. Right. And when you see cranes out and about like you do right now, last year one half of the stadium was finished with renovations. This year the other half is going to be finished with those renovations. Walk us through exactly what's playing out here at Mountaineer Field.
Well, what we're playing out right now is obviously we finished the east side, so now we're going back to the west side that you see there on your camera, and it's going to be identical what you saw on the other side of the stadium. So again, we're finishing the stadium. That was phase 2 is what we're talking about. There's some other fan amenity things that we're looking at that we should be able to announce here in the coming months. But you're right, Jed. If I'm not putting cranes out here in football, adding the resources, continue to build, then we're probably getting behind. We still have a lot of things to do here in this building, to adding team rooms, update our medical area, update the locker room. So there's things that's on my vision and on my plate that I'm looking at to say what's next. And a lot of that comes with funding. We have to, get the support. Our Mountaineer Athletic Club has done a great job going out and raising the funds in the past. But those are the things that it's the vision that's going to help carry this program into the future and be very competitive year in and year out.
Now that you've had one year of the East Side being done, what did fans come to you with that they enjoyed the most? The feedback that you've got.
Well, I think the most is actually the free-flowing access, the wider concourses, actually the more restrooms. Probably our biggest complaint, and we're not going to hide behind it, is the first game we had some glitches. We had some glitches that, the entry into the gates, some of the concession stands, it was slow. Everything was new. We worked that out after the first game. I think it was the Missouri game. But, now we've been through that on the east side. Now the west side, we'll be able to work through those things and make it pretty seamless. We also, we're creatures of habit. And we had a lot of fans that, on the north side, the new gates, and, we changed the east side to the student gates only, and people were used to going through those gates, and now it was all new. So they kind of figured out the gate situation. But overall, I think the improvements, everybody, I heard very positive feedback, and now the west side will be the same.
All right, and that this year also included the renovation of the Coliseum. Fans, I know, are thrilled about that. It's an incredible look seeing that play out. Well, there's a lot of work to get done, Shane, and I know this is a really special day for everyone's football program, but in particular WVU's. Thank you so much for spending some time.
Thank you all for having me, and let's go Mountaineers.
Yeah, I love it. Shane Lyons, West Virginia Athletic Director. It's